Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 10 most carried folding knives ever in my collection. If you don't know, I have a pretty big collection of pocket knives, about 140 or so. I actually carry about 40 of them. I don't make room for every single one of them in my, carry rotation, but there's like 40 or so that I carry, maybe 50. But certain knives absolutely make it into my pocket more often than other knives. And I realized I've never actually talked about the 10 that I carry the most. I update people monthly on what I'm carrying, but there are always knives that I come back to. So I'm going to share those knives with you today. Anything that I can link, I will link it down in the description. Many of these are absolutely available, so make sure and check the description if you want to check them out. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. We're going to be moving through this list very quickly, so don't expect a lot of detail. I kind of carry what I like just because I like to carry it. Sometimes it's more purposeful, and sometimes it's just because I like it. You know how it is. Once I get through the top 10 most carried, I'm going to share with you guys a few knives that I've been carrying here lately that I think will start to bump some of these off the list as time progresses. The 10 that you're going to see first are based on the last 10 to 15 years of, carrying these types of pocket knives. So starting off here with number 10, and that's going to be the Les George VECP V3. This is the USA Mid-Tech variant. Manual running on washers, titanium, and CTS XHP. Not a whole lot here, just a really good design. It's one that I prefer for the simplicity. Definitely expensive, definitely a little bit hard to find, but something that I very much enjoy carrying. It doesn't make it into the pocket as often as it used to, but it still makes it into the pocket. Moving on here, a super rare one that I carry just circumstantially because of how I acquired it. This is a ZT0392. Originally, it was an 0392 BRZ, meaning it had the bronze hardware, but it was all kind of faded because this was actually a user from somebody else in the community. It was resharpened. The bronze hardware was fading, and I thought, you know what? I'm pretty sure the Eclipse hardware will just fit on this thing because that's what it was, modeled after. This was a Hinderer authorized collaboration made by Zero Tolerance, and so I just replaced all the hardware with aftermarket Hinderer authorized hardware or from the ranch hardware, and just turned it into a user. These are extremely rare. If you find these things on eBay, they go for absolutely wacko numbers right now. But I just really enjoy carrying it. I'm a huge Hinderer fan. I'm a huge fan of the Eclipse profile, and this knife just sort of brings back memories of what Zero Tolerance used to be. And so I just really enjoy carrying and using this thing. It's a little thick, it's a little clunky, but that's just kind of what I like to carry. Moving on here, another ridiculously expensive one, but this one it's for a different reason. This is the Rockwell Hego 2. This is a knife that has absolutely not been babied, face reveal. The tip is gone and there are scratches all over the mirror polish. Still some adhesive from some other stuff that I've cut. And then I think the pocket clip's a little messed up too. This is a $1,500 knife, and I love carrying and using this thing. A lot of people think that people who buy really expensive knives don't use them. That's wrong. I mean, in some cases it's true, but I mean, the same could be said of anybody who buys any knife in any territory if they are any type of collector. This was a knife that I wasn't sure that I wanted to carry, and then I started carrying it, and I absolutely loved it. To this day, it is still razor sharp. Despite the amount of use and borderline abuse that it has been put through, the edge is still unbelievably sharp. Really just stropping it brings it back to life if it ever starts to feel like there's something going wrong with the edge, which really I doubt that there actually is. I think it's just like micro debris collecting on that zero edge. But this thing has been an absolute monster. Outside of the tip breaking, it's just been a pleasure to use and carry. So that was number, let's see, 1098. Let's move on here to number 7, and that's the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. This is the Ritter Hogue RSK MK1 G2, one of the size comparison knives. This knife still makes it into the pocket periodically if I'm kind of rushing out of this room down here where I keep all this stuff and I'm looking for something to grab. That's when it's most likely to be picked up and carried. I've actually carried this version and the previous version back when he worked with Benchmade, so I'm kind of, you know, combining those two, you know, time periods together. This is, to this day, it's still, you know, what I consider to be the point of diminishing returns for pocket knives. This is an American pocket knife manufactured by Hogue. The original design was based on the Griptilian, and then, you know, Hogue moved on and started working, or I'm sorry, Doug Ritter moved on and started working with Hogue, and they did a better version of it. The Contour G10 scales are just fantastic. The overall profile is fantastic. It's a wonderful knife, and it still comes in at a reasonable price if you can find it. This is a KnifeWorks exclusive, so that's the only place you're going to be able to find it when it's in stock. Moving on here, 10987, number 6. This is a knife that does not get carried nearly as much, but total carry time since my first experience with it is quite a bit, and that's the Spyderco PM2. I love the PM2. I think that anytime you post like what are the top 10 greatest pocket knives that ever existed, if you post that anywhere on the internet, eventually the Spyderco PM2 is going to get bumped to the top because it's just that popular. It's a great knife. It's got a weird blade to handle ratio, but it's incredibly convenient. That sort of, you know, squashed pelican blade. It looks funky, but until you, I mean, I remember looking at these knives and thinking these are the ugliest things I've ever seen. I wouldn't be caught dead carrying that, blah, 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 blah. Everybody who loves Spyderco knives now said that at one point. That's just how it goes. So if you find yourself saying that, basically, it's just leading up to a point where, I mean, either you experience them or you don't. But if you actually carry these things, you start to understand why people like them. They are very, very easy to manipulate. The cutting geometry is great. The compression lock in this case is really, really fun to manipulate. This one's got aftermarket Flytanium scales on it, but very much enjoy this thing, definitely. 109,876. Number 5. This knife makes it into my pocket quite a bit. It was a recent acquisition, but I've actually carried another version of it before, and that's the Microtech Ultratech. This, for a long time, was my go-to. It's kind of battling with another OTF right now, as far as, like, you know, knives that I reach for to carry. But the Microtech Ultratech is definitely, like, the go-to USA OTF for a lot of people. And, you know, for good reason. It's gone up in price over the years, but it's still fairly competitive. This one's CPM20CV and just has, like, a basic... you know, drop point blade. They come in a lot of different blades, a lot of different colors. Obviously, these are incredibly available right now. Love the pocket clip. I mean, well, I don't love the pocket clip. I love how the pocket clip looks. I don't like the little dip right here, but it does work in and out of the pocket. This thing is pretty easy to get in and out. Don't really need the glass breaker, and the firing switch is a little bit aggressive on the thumb, but this thing has continued to work and has not failed. It really has stood up to it. If you're under the impression that OTFs are weak, or that their locking systems are not reliable. On the junk one, sure, but if you're paying for a premium USA version like the Microtech Ultratech, no, they are incredibly reliable. They are very, very durable, and this one has definitely stood the test of time alongside the other one that I used to carry a while back. Moving on here, another knife that doesn't make it into my pocket nearly as often, but definitely one that has been carried a lot, and that's the Spyderco Shaman. This is actually the Shaman that I unboxed on this channel 5 years ago, but the scales have been replaced with the green scales that came on the River's Edge Cutlery exclusive edition that now has been completely customized and has different scales. This knife used to make it into my pocket all the time. I don't carry it as much anymore, and it's mainly because I have so many different options, but this is still, to this day, one of my favorite ergonomic profiles that exists on a pocket knife, period. This knife has single-handedly shaped what I expect from a knife in terms of manipulation, lockup, the overall size. There's so much of this knife that has altered my preferences when it comes to pocket knives in general. This knife is still available. The price has just become absolutely insane. I think it's like $220 or $230 now. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this is still an absolutely wonderful knife. I love the ergonomic profile of this thing. I absolutely love it. Right now, it does not have a pocket clip because I'm in the process of switching it out with something else. But I love the blade shape. It's a little thick behind the edge, but I love the blade shape. I absolutely love the fact that they put the compression lock on this thing. I love the positioning of the opening hole. The Spyderco Shaman is definitely one of the most legendary pocket knives to ever exist, and you know, it's just the only issue with it is the fact that you know, the price is so ridiculous. Moving on here, 10987654, number 3. This knife has always made it in my pocket and always will, and that is the Hinderer XM18 3.5 inch. This particular one, I own 7 or 8 XM18s. This is the one that I refer to as the workhorse. This is the one that I always grab. This one absolutely gets the most pocket time, as indicated by the marks on the pocket clip. At this point, the edge, it's finally dull. The edge on this thing is actually dull at this point. It is finally ready for a sharpening. You know, the only reason that it didn't go duller sooner is because I have so many other knives in my rotation. But this thing is probably the heaviest knife that I consistently put in my pocket. This is a full, I mean, I added the titanium scale, which was also from the Hinderer Ranch a long time ago. The blade is 165 thousandths and insanely thick at the edge. This is probably the most inconvenient knife that I carry, and it certainly is not the most pleasant thing to deploy, but I love the Hinderer XM18 profile, and I love having this thing in my pocket. This knife, there's not a lot that I won't use this knife for. I mean, at this point, that blade geometry is so strong, so robust. The overall knife is so robust. I have never had an issue with this thing. The lockup solidified right here. If you ever worry about, you know, I don't want my frame locks wearing in over time, I don't want to get lock. I've probably deployed this thing 5,000 times, and this is where the lockup is. I've also squeezed this thing and really put some pressure on it, and every time that lock bar goes right back to the same position and locks up completely and totally solid with no blade play up, down, left, or right. This is an S35EN version, which was a very early Gen 6 model. I knew that this was kind of like my dream carry Hinderer, so once I acquired it, I said, this is the one I'm going to carry, and then all the other ones that I've got are just kind of collection pieces, but I love carrying this knife. It's wonderful. Moving on here, this thing dominates my pockets. To this day, it's like every other day or every 3 days. That's the Demco AD2045. This one shows a little bit more wear because it doesn't have the texturing, right? So you can kind of see all of the scales, like how those things sort of mark up. This is just a bead blasted finish. This one has actually been resharpened. This one, it used to get carried a lot more, but for some reason, I kind of like the smooth one anymore. So this is the one that I use for size comparisons, but it's also the one that I'm reaching for, I feel like, the most. This one, I think, just has a little more crap on the blade. And some of it is actual discoloration from, I mean, these are 3V. So that's going to happen, guys. I mean, it doesn't really matter where you live. 3V at some point is just going to start discoloring. But, you know, as long as you maintain them and you're pretty good about adding oil and things like that to it, then it's not going to be too bad. But really, it's the shark lock. I mean, the ease of manipulation here, the general compact nature of it, the ambidextrous nature of it. I like the shark's foot blade, definitely the best between the two blade shapes that are available. These are EDC champions. They are absolute EDC champions. As time progresses, this will probably be the #1 most carried knife ever. Like, if we go another decade, I can honestly see these being put in the pocket more than anything else. But as of right now, there is only one knife that has actually made it into my pocket more. And it's really just because the Demco AD20.5 only came out within the last couple of years. The knife that has been carried the most out of anything in my entire collection is the Spyderco Para 3. This knife, this was a gift from my wife, but I had carried a Para 3 a little bit before this. This Maximate variant, which has been customized with some, I think these are RGT skinny scales and an MXG deep carry clip. This was, for a long time, it was the only knife that I would carry. And still to this day, I reach for it and put it in my pocket. The only issue with the Spyderco Para 3 is the standard pocket clip. It's the stock clip that comes on the knife. That thing is stupid because of where it's mounted in relationship with the lanyard hole. But outside of that, this is absolutely wonderful. It's everything I love about the Spyderco PM2, but just substantially less awkward because it is smaller. It doesn't really matter what version of this knife you go with. They have so many different amazing options for this thing, and they are all wonderful. It's getting a little bit pricey, but still probably one of the best choices you can make. Again, I think it'll probably be sort of overtaken as #1 over time by the Demco AD20.5, but this is still definitely one of the greatest EDC folding knives of all time. So that's it for my top 10 most carried over the last like 10 to 15 years. Here are some knives that are definitely going to start bumping some other knives off the list, and I'm going to go through these a little quickly. We've got the TRM Atom, this one in titanium. 100%. This is going to bump things off the list. We have, this might surprise you, the CJRB Pyrite. This is the only budget knife in the entire video. It's that good. I reach for this thing a lot, and it's definitely going to start bumping some of these other knives off the list as time progresses. Love the CJRB Pyrite. The Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon, which has, over the last few weeks, been almost the only knife that I have carried and used. Really love this thing, have always loved this thing, and I finally have a user variant that I can enjoy. This is the Herman Sting, one of the most expensive knives on this list, but the size and profile of this thing are absolutely wonderful. This guy's an M398, but they come in a wide variety of different, blade steels. The Winter Blade Co. Factor. I don't think I really need to explain why this one is going to end up being one of the most carried knives ever. Fidget factor for sure, but also just the way that it is manipulated and the blade profile are absolutely wonderful. And then this one also, the Guardian Tactical Recon 35. And the only reason that it hasn't been carried as much is because I only recently picked one of these up to carry, like literally within the last year. I owned one for a while and didn't really carry it and then missed it, realized that I was being stupid, that I actually prefer carrying this over the Ultratech. It's just because of the amount of time that I've had the Ultratech, it's been carried longer. This one will almost inevitably take the place of the Ultratech. These are the next shining superstars of my EDC life moving forward. I can imagine for sure, probably, if you want to know, we'll move some of these over and we'll do kind of like my predicted top 10. Definitely the Demco AD20.5 is still going to be in there. That's just absolutely going to be the case. I can't imagine a world where that is not something that I'm carrying. I still see myself carrying the XM18 3.5 inch. That's just not going to go anywhere. I also can see myself continuing to carry, believe it or not, the Rockstead. I'm going to lay this one down here. I know that's going to make some people cringe. The Rockstead is probably always going to be there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to say the Spyderco Para 3, and then I'm going to cheat a little bit and say that as time goes on, yeah, I'm going to have to put the Shaman in there as well. The Shaman, again, like I said, not carried as much lately, but it's still going to be something. So this is a top 11, right? Just because it's unpredictable, I don't really know. But I would imagine that these knives are going to be the ones that are carried the most as time goes on. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a fun one for me to do. Like I said, I will link as much of this stuff down in the description as I possibly can. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.